Nam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine Vyomavatyaptadehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Kukarastvandhakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhihi Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangayistuštuvagum sastanubhihi Vashema Devahitanyadayuh Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravaah Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaah Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let us chant verses 15, 16, and 17. Let's chant all three, 15, 16, and 17. Number 15. Etasmat jayate pranaha manah sarvendriyani cha. Etasmat jayate pranaha manah sarvendriyani cha. Kham vayurjyotirapah prithvi vishvasya dharini. Kham vayurjyotirapah prithvi vishvasya dharini. Number 16. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishvasya ayatanam mahat. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishvasya ayatanam mahat. Sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tattvameva tvameva tat. Sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tattvameva tvameva tat. Then number 17. Jagrat swapna sushuptyadi prapancham yat prakashate. Jagrat swapna sushuptyadi prapancham yat prakashate. Tad brahmaham iti jnatva sarvabandhai pramuchyate. Tad brahmaham iti jnatva sarvabandhai pramuchyate. So we had gone over the word meanings of verse number 15 in the last class a week ago. Etasmat jayate pranaha. So if you're breaking sandhi, then it is pranaha. But if you're not breaking sandhi, then it becomes etasmat jayate prano manaha sarve indriyani cha. Anyway, that's just a Sanskrit grammar rule. So etasmat means from this. From which this? So this is the the same noun that we have been using for a while. So this is a pronoun referring to the same noun. And so the subject that we are talking about here is really you. So you are being described. The Atma means I. So if you just close your eyes for a second and just think I. That is the subject we are talking about. Everything is based on that I. Who is that I? So that being the case, the entire subject matter is based on that Atma. So here also when it says etasmat, it means from you. From this, meaning that this which has been signified as you. This is an important thing to see. So that the subject matter is really I, not anything else. Who am I? What's going on? Why am I acting this way? So everything is based on the I. And so here also, etasmat jayate pranaha. From this is born the pranaha. Pranaha means the life force. The life force. The life force means that the element which makes us alive is called pranaha. So here there is a distinction between what is and what is living. Sorry. So just spend a minute just thinking about that. So there are two things that we are talking about. One is what is, what exists, what is present, and what is present as living. So here, this distinction is, if we just look into that, what we find is that my status as a living person is a subset of my status as a person who is. So let me repeat it. My status as alive is but a subset of me as I am. As I am is the truth about me. So as I am what? As I am, as a as as a conscious entity, I am. I am, and in the form of intelligence, knowledge, not a knowledge or intelligence of any one particular thing, but knowledge per se. So I am and I am aware. Satyam Jnanam. Sat and Chit is the more fundamental nature of myself. Is a more fundamental nature of myself. And my being alive is a subset of that. It is within it. Because if it is not that, it's not as though this is the justification for it, but this is what we have to see. That if I was fundamentally only when I am alive, this is really what we think. I mean, we have to correct this thought that if I take myself to be a living being, only, leave aside the Sat and Chit, Satyam Jnanam, if I just feel I'm alive, then for one thing, this is not the truth. And for second thing, I am selling myself short. I'm not really appreciating that I am more than a living person. Why? Because if I think of myself as a living person, imagine the implications of that. If I am in a hurry to define myself as a living person, we don't realize how dangerous that implication is. Because I can be disturbed very easily. I can have, sitting here, a heart attack in 1 second, a stroke in 1 second, an earthquake in 1 second, and I'm gone. This is the implication of seeing myself as a living person. And in that case, I'm really worse than a table. Because the table doesn't get a stroke, and the table might get disturbed by an earthquake, but maybe not very much. But I'm gone. I used to be a living person, I'm now no longer a living person. Is this our understanding of through scriptural studies and so on and so forth? No. So, really speaking, so the prana, which is a life force, all it does is to express my existence. It's a subset. So it expresses my existence in the form of movement. Excuse me. So just like, for example, supposing there is a wave in the water. So that analogy can be used in this section. So the water is whether it moves or not. But suppose you drop a pebble in a pond and there are ripples. So the ripples are like the prana. It is moving. It expresses itself. So therefore, just to kind of key in on this word prana, that's not the only one, but I just thought that I would spend a few minutes on that. So just look at this now. I think it becomes clear. Etasmat jayate prana. So in the metaphor of the water, from the water ripples are born. So similarly here also, etasmat means from you, the Atma, the conscious entity, prana is born. And prana is, so this is one distinction, that even in the sleep state, prana is still active. Why? Because in the deep sleep and also in the dream state, the same paraphernalia that you are equipped with in this life needs to be maintained. And so the breathing goes on. You're not aware of it. You're oblivious of it at night. But behind your back, in fact, your mind also goes to sleep. Everything gets to sleep. But the prana is active. Your breathing is active. Even though supposing you go next to a person who's sleeping, they don't have any mind, they don't have any thoughts, their sense organs are inactive. You can touch their body, and unless you sort of disturb them very much before they wake up, if you don't do that, just touch them, they're not aware of it. Certainly their eyes are not aware of any forms. Nothing is going on except for prana. So you find that they are still breathing. So the entire prana is still functioning. But even if you are dreaming, if you are asleep, as long as you are alive, the prana functions. But if death should come, then the prana disappears. But you are still there as a conscious entity. Atma is oblivious of prana. It is independent of prana. It is a superset of prana. This is what needs to be seen. So this is why he says, Etasmat jayate pranaha. From this, prana is born. And then manaha. When you are awake or when you are dreaming, the mind is active. And the two act as cohorts. They They're both born as two parts of the same person, pranaha and manaha. Sarva indriyani, all of the organs of action, organs of sense organs. And so those are all are born from the Atma. Okay. Not only that, but in fact, the space, kham, vayuhu, air, jyotihi, light, sun, apaha, fire. So apaha is waters, prithvi, solidity, vishvasya dharini, one that supports your entire vision. That's all born from the Atma, from you. And so, so here it just, so we've seen that these verses are an explanation of the Mahavakya, the great sentence, Tat Tvamasi. I am Brahma Atma. I am Atma Brahma. So these are all these Mahavakyas, the great sentence, and they are called great because they establish the identity between the total, what is called samashti, and the individual, what is called vyashti. This is important to grasp for us. So we have to look at, I can never be free. See, this is the thing. I can never be totally free until I dismiss the whole thing. I dismiss the whole thing means that I dismiss the ability of the whole world to disturb me. This is the Anantam. Really what we want is total freedom, not partial freedom. And the total freedom cannot come until I dismiss the validity of the whole world. So the whole world must disappear in me. I must still be there when the whole world disappears. And it's a fact, it is going to happen. It is already there, but I don't understand it, that's all. See, the point is that I don't really just, it is not enough that my whole body is gone and the world remains. The world cannot remain. That means there is a world has some reality. As long as it has a reality, then I don't have complete freedom. The whole thing has to be negated. And it will be negated. So this is where the second line becomes important. So, etasmat jayate pranaha manaha sarve indriyani cha. This is the first line. If you can forgive me, there is a knock on the door. I have to take care of this one person who is working in the house. I'll be back in 1 minute. I'll be right back. Thank you. Apologies for the delay. What's happened is that we've had a lot of leaks in the house because of the recent rains. Water has gone in, so there's a person who is starting to do all of that. My wife's not here, so he was asking me some questions, so I thought I will get him straightened out in terms of what needs to be done. So the first line of this is an interesting thing to see in terms of the identity between the total and the individual, what is called samashti and vyashti. This identity is the one that releases me from all the problem. Unless I understand this identity, I am not able to completely become free from problems in my life. This is what it has to be done. And we'll give you a glimpse of how that is the case. What is the reason why we can make that statement that unless you can see the identity, you don't become completely free of the problem. So the second line is talking about the so-called outside world. The kham, the vayu, jyotihi, apaha, prithvi, all of these 5 major elements that the world is made out of. This is the totality. And the individual is the first line, which is pranaha, manaha, sarvendriyani. But both the individual as well as the total are born out of the Atma. All of them are the subset. Not only is the prana the subset, not only the manaha subset, but even the kham, vayu, jyoti, apaha, etc. Everything is within the Atma alone. And once again, we have to, this is why I've been saying this for a while in my own experience, that an analysis of the dream experience is very important. So look at that. In the dream, all of these elements are there. So you have really, when you create yourself as a dream character, you are breathing. You can even, you are fully aware of the fact that you are a person moving around. You're looking at people, responding, communicating, participating. So all of that first part is present in the dream. Pranaha, manaha, sarvendriyani. And also in the dream, you have the same elements outside. You have kham, you have surya, you have the sun, you have the light, you have darkness, you have solidity. Sometimes, supposing you have a fight in a dream and somebody hits you, it hits you like a solid thing. So you have the so-called outside things also in the dream and the inside things also in the dream, and both of them are dependent on you. They are subsets of you. When you wake up from it, they're gone. And they can only be gone if they are subsets of you. They're depending on you. And so similarly here also, in this cosmic creation, it may be cosmic, but at one point in time it will disappear. And you will really just be, yourself outside of any of them. And also, so this is one part of it. The dream analogy was one part of it. One part of the understanding of the identity, the truth, the veracity of this understanding. The second part of that, I think, is equally interesting to see, equally helpful for us to see, which is the following. The entire cosmos and the presence of the individuality in the cosmos is like that of an ocean and the waves within the ocean. See, this is the thing that needs to be appreciated. How? What does it mean? What it means is that whatever qualities you have as an individual is a subset of the qualities which are there in the totality. It's not the other way round. It's not as though the totality is made up of the individual parts. And we have given this example before, just like you have a house. So the house is made up of a combination of individual parts. And so if the bricks fall, then the house falls. See, so this is a different kind of a creation. Making of a house is also a creation. It looks very solid, it looks like all well put together and so on. But it is very much dependent on the parts staying where they are. If the parts fall apart, the whole house falls apart. So this is one kind of creation. The other kind of creation is where if a wave disappears, there is no change to the ocean. So in some way, the first type of creation is a bottoms-up creation, whereas the second type of creation is a tops-down creation. Tops-down in the sense that whatever is there in the whole creation is the same thing is there in the individual parts of the creation, aspects of not even parts. You cannot even say, is a wave a part of the ocean? No, it's not a part of the ocean. Because if it was a part of the ocean, that means you could actually divide the parts, divide the ocean in 1 billion parts and it will all disappear. It doesn't. No. Ocean remains the same as before, no matter how many buckets you take out of it. It is not a part of the ocean. So similarly, the individual is not part of the cosmos. It is an aspect of the cosmos, you might say. There is something, individuality is there, but that individuality is simply a guna, a quality of the whole cosmos. So we can look at that. So for instance, if you see take prana. Take prana. So the prana, which allows you to move. So the prana is what is called Kriya Shakti. So Kriya Shakti means that it allows you to move. So similarly, just like you have ripples in the water, you have the ability to move and change. So this is a Kriya Shakti. This Kriya Shakti is not individually designed. It is a subset of the total Kriya Shakti which is already there. It's a tops-down creation. So this is what is called Sutratma. It can also be called Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha or Sutratma. It's like a cord that connects everything. And it gives you the ability to move if you deserve it. If you preserve it and you deserve it, then you have prana, and that allows you to function as a living being. And it is a subset of the total. This fact of the being a subset of the total is even more, it is easier to understand when you look at, and this is the example that really when I first saw that really made an impression on me, is like that of take motherly love as an example. A motherly love. A motherness, not just the ability to give rise to, because the mother is a very basic, it's a very beautiful creation of Ishvara, because it allows babies to be born inside the body. It's a very amazing thing. But leave aside that part of it. The motherly love is something unique, because it allows the mother to express selfless love for another being. This mother love is something absolutely amazing. Now, let me ask you, given that the entity defined as mother love, is that individually created by a new mother? No. What happens is that in the whole creation there is a total love which is there. And that total love, motherly love, this motherly love is there in the whole cosmos. That overall cosmic mother love is not given to you until you become a mother. When this young lady becomes a mom, she automatically invokes the inherent capability which is already there in the cosmos. Isn't it true? Isn't it true? Because to see a mom with a small baby, is it something this is brand new which has never been seen before? No. You look at it and you say, wow, isn't that nice to see? This is really so this is the second aspect that should make us clear to us that really the individuality is nothing but the totality. It's just an aspect of the totality. So those two aspects, those two reasons, one is, what was the first one? Our ability to see that in the dream, you have both the inside and the outside as are subsets of me alone. And the second of that is that the individuality is nothing but an aspect of the totality. So anyway, this is the verse that talks about that. So the 15th verse is the articulation of the tatpada. In the tatpada means in the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. So the tat refers to the totality. Tvam refers to you, the individuality. And then the total one and the individual one are equated. So that is the Asipada Vachya. Tatpada Vachya. All the previous ones we were looking at up to number 15 were Tvam-pada. 15 is Tatpada. And 16, which we will do next, is the Asipada. So Pada means the word. So Tattvamasi, there are three words. Tat word, Tvam word, and Asi word. So number 15 is the Tat word, means that. Imagine it's English and Sanskrit are very similar. So Tat means that. That means the total. This means me. Something very near. That means which is apparently away from me, but not really. Until I get the identity. Now let's go to number 16, which is the Asipada. So it says, let's look at the word meanings. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishvasya ayatanam mahat sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tvameva tvameva tat. So yat param, yat means that which. Param Brahma. Param Brahma means the unconditioned Brahman. Sarvatma, which is the self of all. Vishwasya, of the universe. I'm just repeating the translation of the verse. Ayatanam. Ayatanam means the very support, the adhara of the Mahat great. And Sukshmat, then the subtle. Sukshmataram, subtler than the subtle. Sukshmataram, Sukshmat, Sukshmataram means subtler than the subtle. Nityam. Nityam means constant, which means completely independent of any other factor that might disturb us. Tat tvameva, that is you alone. Tvameva tat, you are that alone. So we will see why is it tat tvameva, tvameva tat. So there is the reciprocal truth to each other. And that is given. So let's look at the entire sentence in English. That which is the unconditioned Brahman, the self of all, the great support of the universe, subtler than the subtle, timeless, that alone you are that alone. That Brahma are you, and you are that Brahman. And that Brahman is the self of all, and which is the great support of the universe. So with these words, then with this mantra, the identity between the samashti and vyashti is established. This is called the great equation. So the great sentence or the great equation. This is the solution to the great. Great means that once you understand this, there is nothing greater than that. There is nothing more important than that. Nothing more useful than that. This is it. Once you understand this, this is the goal of our life. And so, another way to look at that is whether we recognize it or not, whether we articulate it or not, whether we express it or not, we are all looking for God. We are all looking for God. One can make that statement. We are all searching for God. How can you say that? Because what we are looking for is stability. Stability means non-changingness. In a way, the life is a continuous journey. Continuous journey. We seem to be going somewhere. And the moment we sit down and take a rest, as though somebody doesn't want us to even sit down, we are asked to move. Come on, get up again. Our whole quest is to just relax and not do anything. But the whole experience of life does not allow me to do that. I am just in flux continuously, moving from place to place, moving from situation to situation, searching, moving, looking. And what I'm looking for is just stability. Just being, not having to be disturbed again. And a stability which is joyful. Because if one dies, there is stability, there is no movement. I don't want that kind of a situation. I want really a stability which is joyful. And a stability which doesn't end. And really that is what God is all about. By very definition, the God has stability, joyfulness, and independence from all the things. I want to be that. That's what I'm really looking for. Because I don't find anywhere, no matter what I do, any kind of stability, any kind of total joyfulness, any kind of independence. I can't find it anywhere. But it's a catch-22. It's an interesting situation. I cannot find it anywhere. And I cannot give up this quest for doing that. So therefore, I think we can very safely say that everyone in the world, everyone, it's not that some people are looking for God, the other people are not looking for God. Everyone is looking for, we may not know what God is, but we are looking for those three factors. stability, joy, and non-interruption of any kind. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Everyone is looking for that. And then comes the clincher. God cannot be found outside of I. God cannot be found outside of I. If there is God, it must be me alone, because if I approach God as external to me, I am already diminishing the status of God. Isn't it? Let's think about that. And this is exactly what is happening. Supposing you take a poll of people and saying, have you seen God? People will say, no, I'm still looking for God. Have you seen anything? Nope. Last time we checked, we could not find God. So the whole existence, not in the whole world, but in the whole cosmos, there is a search for God, which means that they're isolating it as saying some strange place the God is there, but not near me. I haven't seen anywhere here. This is not right. So really speaking, what we have to see is that our quest for what we define to be total independence must be me. Praptasya prapti. It is already there, but I don't recognize it. So this is the fundamental science behind the identity of Tat and Tvam. What you thought to be that is really the same as you with yourself. And this needs to be explored. I should not dismiss this quest and saying, no, that's not possible. This is why this is sacrilegious. I think I was telling you this this episode that took place with Swami Dayanandji when he first came to this, a long time ago, and he would be moving around, giving lectures and talks and so on. And he was telling us one time he was going from New York to Toronto to talk, and in the airport there was, on those days, these Krishna conscious people who used to carry Bhagavad Gita all over, just like Bible toting people. So they were all over the place trying to tell people about, get this Gita, study the Gita, and so on. And so they were all over the place. And so when Swamiji was sitting there at one place, just waiting for the plane and just reading a book or something, so this lady appeared to him and he says, what kind of a Swami are you? What? Swamiji says, you know something about Hinduism? She says, yes, absolutely. I'm a follower of Krishna, and I like the Bhagavad Gita, and this Prabhupada is our teacher, and we are Krishna conscious people. So Swamiji says, that's wonderful, I'm very happy. So he says, what kind of a Swami are you? And he said, well, I'm teacher of Advaita Vedanta. So Advaita Vedanta means there's the total and the individual are the same. And she must know this. She said she immediately got very antagonistic towards me. Swamiji was saying. She said, shame on you. Swamiji said, shame on me? Why? Shame on you that you are masquerading as Ishvara. You are not Ishvara. You are just sitting there, you're hungry little person. You need some food. And you need to go to the bathroom. I mean, I'm just making it up. And you think you are Ishvara? This is just ridiculous. What kind of a nonsense are you teaching everybody else? Swamiji said, I'm sorry, it's okay. It's okay, thank you. Okay, you do what you want to. So this is really our own thinking. I mean, it's not just this one lady. But our own thinking is, how can I be? So we're not saying you should be Ishvara. When I use the word God, that is to use that as Ishvara. So no, that's not what we're saying. But the very fundamental part of Ishvara is Brahman, which is the very content of it. That you are. That you are. So there, it is really just a question of the upadhi. So the upadhi means that it is just a form of the formless. So from the standpoint of the totality, the Brahman is the Ishvara. Just like from the standpoint of the ocean, the whole Pacific Ocean, the huge ocean, is nothing but water. But from the standpoint of the individual ignorance, not the entire totality, the same Brahman is the individual, the Jiva. So the same water is a particular wave, and the same water from the standpoint of the entire ocean becomes the ocean. So there is a difference between Ishvara and Jiva in that sense. But the very content of the two are the same, there is no difference between them. So this is what it is saying. Now we can, with that background, we can understand this verse. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishwasyam ayatanam mahat. Excuse me. So that Brahma, which is the self of all, the I thought in all, Vishwasya ayatanam mahat. It is in fact the very support of the entire creation. That Brahman, which is sukshmat sukshmataram, which is subtler than the subtlest. How can we say that? What's the justification for saying subtler than the subtler? Subtler than the subtle? Because the whole concept of subtleness and grossness is due to the relationship between cause and effect, Karanam and Karya. So just like we saw the living, the pranaha, so the isness is the Karanam and the pranaha is the Karya. And you can see this in terms of any creation. So, like for example, the creation we've been talking about, which is water in a wave. So the wave is maybe subtle, but it is very specific. But the water being the cause of the wave is subtler than the wave. And another good way to look at that is the pervasiveness of the two. A created entity is not as pervasive as the cause that created it. So the water is more pervasive, the wave is less pervasive. So the subtleness and the lack thereof has to do with these aspects of Karana Karya. So therefore also you can say that a conscious person is the most subtle entity there is in the whole creation. Consciousness. Why? Because consciousness is all pervasive. Whereas the effects of the consciousness, another way to look at that, for example, just in the examples we have seen, is that the electricity is all pervasive, is very subtle. It is formless. I mean, there is form of the electricity in our example, but just as an example, it is relatively formless and very powerful and very pervasive. But a specific appliance is less pervasive, less subtle, dependent. So in that sense here, he says that Brahman, Yat Param Brahma, Sarvatma Vishwasya Vayatanam Mahat. And Ayatanam means the very support. So the water is the very support of the wave. Ayatanam, Mahat. So here also the Brahman is the support of the whole creation. And Sukshmat Sukshmataram, subtler than the subtlest. Nityam. Nityam means timeless, not disturbed by anything. This is something just amazing to see, that I, the very conscious being that I am, I'm always the conscious being. I am shown in conjunction with a variety of different aspects of my body-mind complex. Like you can say, I am young, I am old. So there you're taking on the age of the body, etc. But you are, I am. So the I am and I know is nityam. There is no interruption for it. Just look at it. All your life there is no interruption to I am. All 24 hours, in days, weeks, I am. Where does it disappear? Where is the time there? There is time for the body, the mind, the prana. All of those are governed by time. But the I is not governed by time. Don't you see this? Nityam. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishwasya ayatanam mahat sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tattvameva tvameva tat. So now we come to the final. Why is it there, this reciprocal kind of a thing? And so, here Swami Viditatmananda ji, on page 170 and 171, explains this very fact, that the dual use, you are that and that alone is you, is used to solidify the doubts that may occur that I am so this is like saying Ishvara includes me, God includes me, but I don't include God. It's a one-way identity. See, this is a one-way identity means you are that means here, I'll read this. This is interesting. So I will read the bottom of the page 170. So he says that Brahman, how can I be Brahman? This is the last paragraph on page 170. He says, I can understand that Brahman is limitless. But wait a minute. Am I Brahman? How can I be that Brahman? Because I am limited in every way. Brahman is limitless, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. And on the other hand, I am very limited in every way. I can be a part of it. I can be a fraction of Brahman. Brahman is myself, all right, but how can I be the self that is Brahman? It is possible that a doubt like this may arise because the statement Tattvamasi of Chandogya Upanishad has been explained in different ways by different teachers, different acharyas. One acharya explains Tattvamasi as you are a fraction or part of Brahman or God. Another acharya explained is you are the servant. And then there are some other explanations and so on. However, this Upanishad eliminates all such doubts by saying you are that and that you are, leaving no doubt about the mutual identity. So here Swamiji says that you were not born, but you as a body was born. And as long as you mistook yourself to be the body, you were born. So similarly, you are not sad, but only with respect to the mind you are sad. And to see that distinction is a totally different thing altogether. Here he quotes Ramana Maharshi. Yeah, so this is very interesting that he quotes Ramana Maharshi, which says that we went through this earlier, that when Brahman wears the costume of Maya, it is called Ishvara. And when it wears the costume of ignorance, it is called Jiva. Again, signifying the identity between them. Anyway, so this identity is something that we have to be clear about. Eventually, it will happen. That is the goal. And until that happens, we're not done yet, because our doubts remaining. So eventually, I think I would say that ultimately it depends on your submitting to the truth, inquiring about the truth, being strong enough to quell your own doubts and saying, I want to really get to the very bottom of this, because unless you do that, your doubts will prevent you from seeing the total independence. This is what the Acharyas tell us, that sometimes, so this is what Mananam is all about, that until your doubts are removed, it's as though you don't know much. You know, and I sometimes see this in fact of a person, I think we have talked about this, you see a person approaching from a distance, and at first you're not sure in the shimmering of the light and shimmering of the heat and so on, long way away, what the person is. Is that an animal? Is it a person? And then as it comes closer, you say, no, that's not an animal, that's a human being that's walking towards me. But you're not sure about whether it's a man or a woman or who that is coming. You're still about, half a mile away. And you're not sure. So you know some things that it's a human being, but you don't know which one. And person comes close to you to a point where sometimes a recognition comes in. He says, oh, this is Jack, my friend Jack. Oh my goodness. He's walking towards me. So that is the clear recognition where there are no doubts. Because until then you have doubts. You have some knowledge, but it is encompassed by doubts. You don't see that person as clearly. But then comes a clincher. He says, yes. So therefore in our study also, it is like that our doubts are obscuring my clear, this is what is called Sakshat Karanam. In Sanskrit it's called Sakshat Karanam, also called Aparoksha Jnanam. So you have Paroksha Jnanam, but you don't have Aparoksha Jnanam. That there is Brahman, but to know that Brahman is myself alone, none other than that, is Aparoksha Jnana. And so that means you're clarifying all the doubts until you become saying, oh yes, of course. this is what the journey is all about, really. And one day this will be, this will happen to each one of us that want to go in that direction. So with that, we close verse number 16. And so there is no class next Saturday, as I mentioned to you in my email. And then we have 5 more classes left after that, starting I think on the 14th, I believe, of May through the 11th of June. And we will finish the Kaivalya Upanishad in those 5 classes. And so then this course will be complete. And then after that, when we come back from Sailorsburg and the 4-day weekend, Independence Day weekend on July 9th, we will see what we need to do, what you want to do. And I mentioned in my last class that I'm thinking I'm going to send out a questionnaire, a survey, and assess from the questionnaire what our joint plans will be. Either we hold classes or we terminate them. All of those are possibilities, and we will go forward with that. So with that, I close today's class. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Wonderful to see you all. Very good. If I don't see any questions in the next few seconds. Sam Dillon says in the Bible, when God says, I am that I am, isn't that the same as, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about that. I've often felt this about Christ and Christianity, that really the fundamental teachings are the same. Like, for example, what I've heard from that is Christ, when he was being hanged, he was saying, you're hanging the wrong person. I cannot be killed. This is a very clear enunciation of the understanding of the Atma, that you're killing my body, you're hanging my body, but you cannot touch me. And from the very beginning, I thought this is a person of one who has a very clear idea about what it is. He's a realized person. So yeah, I agree with you. There are many similarities. I don't know some of the details of Christianity. You alone can tell that. But if this is what that says is, yes, that will be the same. Exactly. Wonderful. Very good to see you all. And so we will see you 2 weeks from today, hopefully.